Does Stephon Castle go back into the starting unit?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Friday and welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. I'm glad to have y'all back, and we appreciate y'all subscribing. And speaking of subscribe everywhere you can, from YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app, and subscribe to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. It's in the description below. Got a link there for you. It's free, easy, click, sign up, get in your email inbox every single day. Talking all things silver and black. So what are we talking about today? If you're on the YouTube side of things, you can see on your screen. We're asking the big question that's kind of grinding a lot of Spurs fans' teeth right now. They're pulling their hair out. Is that should Steph Castle go back to the starting unit? He's been coming off the bench of late. Devin Vassell's took in his place. But what do the numbers say? What do the numbers show? Are there some surprising stats now that, at least for now, Castle's on the bench? We're going to be discussing that and then preview tonight's game. Spurs and Nets. Hopefully the Spurs can get a win in the Big Apple. Then we go right for the first time against the Knicks. Hopefully tonight against the Nets, fortunes will change. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So yeah, Devin Vassell came back from injury. Was coming off the bench for a little bit, but then slowly but surely, he is back into the starting lineup. And it was Steph Castle that got pulled from the starting unit back to the bench. So, I mean, by the way, that's something I had predicted that would happen. I know our guest, I don't think he thought that was going to happen. Yeah, not he's going to call me out in a few minutes. But, yeah, I thought that once that happened, Vassell going back, it was going to be Castle that was going to take the hit. Sure enough, it happened. And sure, you can make arguments, pro, cons, for why you make it, but you're starting to see the effects of that, at least statistically, on Castle and maybe on the court with that new starting unit. And so far, it's been, it's okay, but we looked at the numbers before we hit record, and there are some very interesting numbers that we're going to bring out regarding Castle's impact in the starting unit. So we're going to be diving into that. And then, again, just preview tonight's Spurs game, Nets and San Antonio. It's going to bring our guest. He is back, everybody. We're going to finish out the week strong with Rudy Campos rocking the Atlanta Falcons jersey.
Yeah, it's football weekend like always, but also Travis Kelce beat the guy, Tony Gonzalez's NFL, and if I think it was the Chiefs record for most touchdown catches, but yeah, I got to wear my Tony Gonzalez jersey. Best night in football, man.
Man, how big is your collection of jerseys? Because you seem to have a new one, whether it's on sweep or here in Locked On Spurs, you always rock them.
I have upwards of about 30, I think, total. 25 to 30. And I mean, yeah, Falcons fan, I'm a Spurs fan, Tar Heel fan, but I've got different players. I was a collector back in the day.
Yeah.
Luckily, I lost enough weight to get into some of these jerseys again. So,
yeah, that's one thing I never got into was jerseys. I mean, I appreciate them. I might have one or two, but I never, like, oh my God, this X, Y, and Z jerseys out. Or what's that one company, Hardwood Classics? I think that's the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know they put out some really nice ones, but never got into it.
I hardly wear them.
I don't want to go.
Yeah, I hardly wear them out. Like you will rarely see me wear a jersey going out or anything like that. I just have them to wear them every now and then. So
yeah, good on you. At least good on you. All right. Again, follow Rudy on X at Sweep the League and check out his show, Sweep the League. Later on this episode, he's going to tell you what's going on with them, how you can subscribe, and maybe tease something on the horizon. So we'll hear what Rudy has to say about his show, Sweep the League. All right, Rudy, you're here to talk about Steph Castle, starting unit, and the silver and black. As I said in the introduction, Rudy, it's been a shift in the starting unit. Mitch Johnson recently said that they're going to stick with it, at least for now. But as I predicted, that once Vassell was going to get back into the starting unit, it was going to be Castle that was going to take the hit. I think you felt that it was going to be Champagne that was going to take the hit. But in my opinion, and when I was projecting it, I saw, they're not going to pull Champagnie because the floor spreading that he can provide, it'll be Castle. Sure enough, could happen. But especially in that game versus the Knicks, you saw a lot of Spurs fans just screaming at the top of their lungs, why is Trey Jones out there? This is the end of the game, and you need some defense, and Castle's on the bench. Chris Paul did address it post-game versus New York, saying, like, well, it was just Trey Jones was, quote-unquote, hooping. And that's why he was still out there. But you're starting to see a lot of fans just, like, shake the trees, like, put him back in. Castle needs to go back in. Before we dive into the numbers, do you think it was a smart move by Mitch Johnson? The coaches have to pull Castle off that unit.
Smart move? No. From a coach's standpoint, I've coached basketball before. I'm putting my best players out, especially in winning time when you have a chance to beat the New York Knicks. I'm putting my best players, even though Trey has had, some success during the Knicks game. I don't look at it as just, he's playing ball. He's balling for one game. It's a fact of what has Stephon Castle been able to do. Go all the way back to when he blocked SGA against the Thunder. And that was a very key block. So he's a very smart defender. In winning time, that's what you need. You've got Chris Paul out there. You've got women. You've got your offensive weapons out there. Yeah. If more than anything, having Steph Castle out in winning time just for defensive purposes makes more sense. I really agree with what you were saying. Maybe the thought of Trey Jones being out there wasn't the best idea. Do you blame Mitch Johnson? No, because in that situation, you have to do what's best for the team. It's not like he's going out there and intentionally doing things just to get a loss. There's no tanking, wink, wink that people say. But the fact of the matter is, in that situation, Stephon Castle's built a reputation of being a hard-nosed defender for the Spurs, and he's shown it in the past. He should have been out there 100%.
Yeah, I agree with you. But, you're kind of hot, at least for the coaching staff's rocking a hard place. What do you do with, I guess, arguably, for this roster's sake, your second best player on the roster? That's Devin. You got to have your power players out there, and, they threw him out there. The issue with Devin, he's just inconsistent. He'll have an incredible night one night, and then he'll go 0 for 4 or 4 for 11 from the field, and then, not show up in winning time, as we saw during the Knicks game. But let's go look at some numbers here. So let's get this out of the way, Rudy. Let's look at that starting unit, and I'll mention it here. So the original starting unit for the season was Barnes, Castle, Champagnie, Paul, and Victor Wembanyama. For the longest time, and I may have to check this out real quick, but that was one of the best starting units, at least statistically, in the NBA. They weren't number 1, number 2, but they were up there. I think like top 10. And we're looking at the numbers. So the net points per 100 possessions, that unit is a plus 18 points. That's awesome. That's one of the top 3 starting units in the Spurs roster right now. And guess what? All 3 of them involve Castle. So the second best unit, by the way, that very first unit I mentioned right now, that's the third best. But the second best unit is, ironically, it's Barnes, Castle, Zach Collins, Keldon, and Devin. That is a net per 100 possessions of plus 19.3 points. And the best one out there, again, involves Castle. Branham, Castle, Champagnie, Collins, and Keldon Johnson. That's a plus 27.8. The point is, I know you're in the name Zach Collins. Just forget about that. We're talking about the main thing is Castle is involved in all 3 of those top units. Rudy, you have a statistic that you want to throw out here to bolster why he needs to get back out there.
So, when you go to the lineup that's being used pretty much the entire season of Champagnie, Castle, Barnes, Chris Paul, Wembanyama, you're talking about a plus minus. If you're a numbers guy, the plus minus is the absolute best. They're plus 58. They're averaging about 128. Their rating on the offensive side, their defensive rating is 110. So, it's a plus 18 on the offense to defensive rating. You're talking about a team that, doesn't turn over the ball a whole lot either. It's one of the least turnover prone lineups for the Spurs. Okay. It's a very smart lineup. You've got 2 shooters in Barnes and Champagnie. You got Chris Paul, who can run the point and basically just set everybody else. You've also got another point guard minded like player in Stephon Castle, who plays both sides of the ball. His slashing abilities make that lineup just that much better. Of course, you throw in Wembanyama with the pick and rolls. You've got the connection between Castle and Wembanyama. You've seen a lot of this lineup be successful for the Spurs. You saw them get off to fast starts as well as what they need to do. Again, the Devin Vassell thing come into the starting lineup. You're paying the guy, and he was probably your second best player coming onto the team and into the season. But when you've got success, that's kind of where, if you go back to the old days of Pop and the terrible three and Manu and Tony and Duncan, you kind of had to pull them onto the side a couple of times to say, we're going to have to bring you off the bench. I know we're paying you good money, but you've got to understand your role. And that's something that I understand Devin, should be a starter. I totally get that. But when you look at the Castle and the Champagne side, I think over the last 5 games, Julian coming off the bench hasn't affected him as much as I thought it would. So I like that move, but leaving Steph in there with Devin Vassell, I'm curious to see how that starting 5 would go, because again, you add another slasher, you add another shooter in Devin Vassell. Maybe it works a little bit better, but having Steph Castle off the lineup completely just doesn't sit well with me. Is when you look at it by numbers, Jeff, that lineup is the absolute best lineup on the Spurs roster right now.
Yeah. And you can dive in deeper into the numbers. The second best unit involves Castle. Again, as mentioned, the third best unit, hey, Castle's involved. How about the fourth best unit? Castle's there again. So there's a common thread. Obviously, Wemby's in there, but there's a common thread outside of Wemby, is that Steph Castle. You look at that best starting unit as well that involves Castle. I look at it, and you got a little mixture of everything. You got the guys that know their roles. You got your floor spreaders, and of course, you got Wemby being Wemby. But even in that second best unit, which is I think a net rating of 64.8, which is good for a plus 16.
Yeah.
You're still seeing some positive numbers. You're looking at turnover assist to turnover ratio, one of the lowest for the Spurs, like 2.6. You have an offensive rating of 140.7 and a defensive rating of 75.9. So even that's just clamps. That's just something that clamps on. But again, that's Wemby and Castle doing their thing, and of course Sohan's involved as well. So regardless of how you look at it, Castle is an integral part to a starting unit. Not to say that he's not integral coming off the bench. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But there's something to be said of why Castle should be going in there. But before we dive into some more numbers, I get too heavy numbers. I want to leave you with this before we hit the break. Rudy, is fine. If the numbers show that, and if you're going to replace somebody in that new starting unit, who will it be? Is it Devin? Is it Champagne? If Castle needs to get back. So think about that, Rudy. And we'll be back in just a few seconds. But we're here with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League, talking all things Silverback and putting in the spotlight Steph Castle, should he go back into the starting unit. But before we continue our chat, let's talk about Robinhood.
With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up today at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC.
All right, we're back here on Locked On Spurs, joined by Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. See, he makes it so easy for y'all. And ask him if it's true, if his streak of winning Jeopardy 100 games in a row is still holding till today. I think that's your record, right? You won Jeopardy like 100 times in a row.
Yeah, it would have been 101, but I got sick and they didn't allow me in the studio, so I forfeited that whole streak right there. So apologies to all my fans out there.
He's a Jeopardy whiz. We're talking about Steph Castle and should he get back into the starting unit. So again, we're not going to try to get too heavy in numbers. I know that can kind of bog the mind here, but if the Spurs are going to make a move, if let's just say Mitch Johnson, coach said after the meeting, they're like, yeah, it's got to stop. We got to put him back in there. Who do you think should come back onto the bench? Is it Devin? Is it Champagnie? Well, how do you think this works out?
So just by looking at the last 5 games, I think it's Julian Champagnie probably still comes off the bench. Whether he's your 6th man or not, I don't know, but he'll definitely be either the first or second guy off the bench. So that kind of gives you a Steph Castle, Paul, Vassell, Barnes, Wembanyama lineup. I do like that lineup right there. It keeps Devin, relatively happy. You still got, again, a shooter in Devin who really streaky and, he can still slash to the basket. He can still make things done. He's coming off the bench with, Sohan. You come off the bench with Champagnie and Keldon. Those 3 guys there, I like the energy that they would bring off the bench. So that's why I would take that starting 5 right now. But to be honest, I don't know, man, because then you have a lot of people that say, well, Jeremy should be starting because he works great defensively for the Spurs. And I think it's more of a Mitch Johnson needs to realize the matchup situation when it comes to every single game they're going to play from here on out. Some matchups will work better in the starting lineup. Some matchups may not. But overall, Vassell, Paul, and Castle in the backcourt. I like Barnes as well in there and Wembanyama. To me, that provides shooting, that provides, cutting to the basket, slashing, that gives Victor 2 point guards to work with him on pick and rolls. Like I said, the connection you've had with Wemby and Castle, it's unreal already. I mean, they're growing together already. So that would be my starting 5. And you hit it earlier real quick on the Devin Vassell thing. It's about consistency, man. And I think recently someone had made a comment on social media or it was posted somewhere, has Devin pretty much hit his ceiling? Is this all we're going to see him? Yeah. I remember, Jeff, I've told you a lot of times already on Locked On. I mean, they can go back and do the research and bring up the receipts. I've questioned how much more you can get out of Devin. And I think you can still get a little bit more. But again, I'm going to tell you what I told you back then. What you see is pretty much what you're going to get. I don't see him going into that next top tier of players or that next level. But again, it's not a bad thing. It's just the consistency of getting that 28 and, 8, and then you go down to 7, 8, 11, 12. Then you get 30 and 25 and 7, 8, 9. The consistency for Devin has never truly been there. So that's kind of what you got to kind of factor into. But that lineup that I gave you, that's probably the best lineup I would go with right now.
Yeah, now this maybe chalk this up to the rookie wall, or maybe just the starting and back to the bench and, whatnot for Castle. But you're looking at his last 5 games, he's only averaging 8 points per game, 2.4 rebounds, 3.4 assists in about 18 minutes per game.
Yeah.
And you look at his overall, 11.4 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists in about 25, 26 minutes per game. So you're seeing like a quick drop off in the numbers too. And then to break it down even further, he's come off the bench 13 games so far, heading tonight's game versus Brooklyn. He's averaging about 19 minutes per game, 6.9 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 1.5 turnovers, and shooting 35% from the field and just 11% from the 3. Now, this is how he operates as a starter. 17 games starting, 30 minutes a game, 14.6 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, and what we got here, 4.5 assists, and shooting about 40% from the field. So it's big difference. I think that he will eventually go back into the starting unit. Right now, they're in a 2-game skid. If it hits 3 or 4, I think they're going to have to move it again. But as far as I'm concerned, if I had to make a decision who's coming off that unit, I'm going with Devin.
Do you go with Devin because he's supposedly the second best player?
No, I'll go with Devin just because the numbers show that Castle works well. And also another common thread in one of the better lineup is Champagnie. His name appears more often than Devin does. Now, sure, Devin got hurt and whatnot, but I can't let Champagnie go, because that three-point threat. I need that out there. And Devin is not that consistent outside shooter, as the numbers have shown. Now, not to say that Champagne is shooting lights out every single game, but you're more likely to see more consistency from the outside with Julian than you are with Devin. So, and it's not a knock on Devin. I'm not saying that, he's not starting material. Of course he is. But in this case scenario, if it's just what's good for the team, getting W's instead of L's, Castle needs to be out there. And that's high praise for a rookie. That's great for a guy who, number 4 overall pick, I think is a big rebuild. But I wanted to go back to that original starting unit. I think it needs to. The numbers show it. We've seen it. We to start the season, and we're seeing it kind of falter with the reinsertion of Devin Vassell. I think it'll change. I think it should. Do you think, and we'll get into the Nets game right now in just a few minutes, but do you think it should start now, or do you still cook with this Devin Vassell back in the starting lineup? And because as you mentioned in yesterday's show, murder is coming up. After this game versus NBA, it gets rough.
Yeah, they've got Murderers Row, not only the next 5 or 6 games after Brooklyn. It's a good amount of games that they're going to have to go through a gauntlet of playoff and play-in teams. So the thing, too, is they're going to have to figure something out when it comes to the starting 5. Steph Castle gives them a really good starting 5. It basically, you see it. He gets momentum with the guys. He starts the game early. He gets to play with the starters. He plays a lot better. Now, Champagne, I understand, but the Champagne-Barnes type of, starting 5 that we've looked at that's been successful. You've got, your 2 of your top 3-point shooters right there, which gives Wemby, forget Castle and Paul, it gives Wemby so many options because if he's double-teamed in the post, he's got 2 shooters there. He's got a guy slashing to the basket. He's got another guy in Chris Paul who can knock down the open jump shot as well. He's shooting 37% from 3-point range. So that whole lineup is good. And then the Devin thing, Devin in the starting lineup, I like it. Again, you like it, but someone's got to take, a back seat somewhere. For me, it's Champagne because if you still got Harrison Barnes there, he's still shooting. He's your best 3-point shooter at 40.8% on the season. So I think you're okay with that lineup. The one guy we don't mention that kind of is the head scratcher is you lose Sohan in the starting lineup somewhere in here. And he's been starting lately for the Spurs. And it's like, do you keep him out there? Because if you keep him out there, then you're kind of stuck because now you're Devin, Paul, Sohan, and then Wemby, and then do you throw Barnes? Do you throw Champagne in there? You're losing a lot of shooting with Jeremy in there. So it's kind of it's a good problem to have as a coach because you got a lot of talented players. But the hard part is who meshes together. If you're looking on a paper, this lineup meshes, this lineup meshes, this lineup is good, this lineup's not. You have to go with your gut instinct. And right now, I think that's what Mitch is doing. He's going with his gut instinct. He's going with guys that have been a part of the Spurs organization for a while now. So that's kind of what he's entrusting in his players in these lineups.
I'm going to throw something at you.
Sure.
Look at Barnes. What do I Rudy Barnes? Have him coming off the bench. Or you want that steady veteran presence out there?
I don't mind Harrison Barnes coming off the bench, but it depends on what lineup. So I'm going to throw you the question and I'll answer it. What lineup would you go with without Barnes?
All right. Wemby, Castle, Paul, Champagne. Man. Vassell? What about that?
Okay. So what I'm going to pick off is this. You have your shooting out there in Julian Champagne, but the real part that you're going to miss is Julian doesn't have a slash to the basket move or get to the basket, whereas Harrison Barnes can pump fake and get to the basket. He's got more of talent than Julian does. So I will say as a coach, if I'm coaching you on that lineup, I'm going to play him really tight. I'm going to have my defender up on Julian because why? I don't think he can get around me and get to the basket. And if he can he finish? Whereas Harrison Barnes can get to the basket and finish at the rim. We've seen him do that. I know he's older, but we've seen him do that throughout his career. So I like the lineup, but I think Barnes coming off the bench means you're probably going to have to keep Julian out there for shooting purposes, but you're going to have to make a move somewhere else in there. That lineup really wouldn't go. So then you may have to go with Jeremy there because, you're going to have to add some defense. You're going to have to, then if you add Jeremy, you're going to lose shooting. So the lineup it's kind of crazy, and it's fun to insert different lineups, but I think Harrison should be a staple on the starting five. I think the only staple guys on there should be Paul, Barnes, and Wemby. Those are the three main guys. Everybody else, it's kind of interchangeable. I like Castle because you get off to a fast start. You like Devin. I like Devin. Champagne needs to be out there because the numbers say so. But the only three staples in the starting five should be Paul, Barnes, and Wemby, in my opinion.
Yeah. And another argument why I think it should go back to it, just because numbers don't lie, and the numbers proven that original starting unit when it had Castle to start the season, it just rocks. It rocks. The numbers show it. So there's other things too. Then of course you have Castle, young guy, rookie, 19 years old, just getting adjusted, coming off the bench. You had Devin coming back and the chemistry thing, but yeah, if numbers don't lie and the starting unit which has Castle works, why try to fix something that's not broken? I think, to me, you pull Devin aside and be, look, this is what we're doing without you. We're glad you're back. You're a big piece, but you and Keldon, man, off that bench, it'd be awesome if Keldon can do it. Sacrifice his starting unit for the bench. I think Devin should do it. And of course, everybody's going to be, well, he's the highest paid Spur, and what are you doing having your highest paid player on the bench? But the numbers don't lie, and the numbers show that Castle is integral to the starting unit and perhaps should go back sooner than later. He is Rudy Campos will Sweep the League, and make sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League. We're going to be discussing the Spurs and Nets in just a few seconds. Can the Spurs break their losing skid in New York against the lowly Nets? We'll discuss it. We'll break it down right here on Locked On Spurs. But first, let's talk about FanDuel.
Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need and the place where to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com right now to join today. By the way, the app is very easy to use, user-friendly. It's very intuitive and not hard to navigate whatsoever. Sign up is easy. Hey, look, NFL action, as mentioned, is underway. NBA action is underway. Your Spurs are underway right now. What more do you need? Go to FanDuel.com right now to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All that takes is just for you to go and sign up right now. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All systems have been alerted to your presence. You must subscribe to Locked On Spurs immediately.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League and go to YouTube, search for Sweep the League, subscribe right now. He'll talk about that in just a few seconds, as well as perhaps some nice surprises in the new year. We'll hear what Rudy has to say about that. Maybe I can get him to announce what it is early. Or, probably not. All right, we're going to look at tonight's games. Yeah, probably not. We're going to look at tonight's game, Spurs Nets. Spurs be looking to snap that 2-game losing skid. Didn't go off well in the Big Apple, losing to New York. Hopefully they can get it tonight in Brooklyn. Spurs coming to tonight's game 15-15, while the Brooklyn Nets are 11-18. Now they did play Milwaukee yesterday, so keep in mind that moving forward. Maybe some of the numbers may change, but nevertheless, on paper, Rudy, this is a game team the Spurs should win. But I said that versus Philadelphia, and the Spurs got thumped and they lost. They're coming off kind of a heartbreaking loss to New York. I mean, they really took it to them. Like Bridges went off. By the way, I know everybody's talking about Wemby going 40-plus points, but they're ignoring Bridges. Bridges had a big game himself. That was kind of a wash right there. They canceled each other out. But nevertheless, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, not good time for you right now. I'm a big fan for them, but because they're on a 3-game losing skid, so they're not looking good right now. And they had Milwaukee last night, so more likely probably an L. But here's something that stands out from me with the Nets. In their 3-game losing skid, this is a good key for the Spurs. They have not topped 100 points. And that's like unheard of in today's NBA. 95 points, a mustered out versus Miami in a loss. 94 points versus Utah in a loss. 94 points versus Utah. Again, that are back-to-back Utah. So they struggle to score points. The numbers show it. So the Spurs got to just bring a little bit of defense, and they should be okay. Now, keep this in mind, Rudy and everybody that's listening. They're not sharing the ball that well in the last few games. Had 3 games with fewer assists than their opponent, and they're not connecting up the threes. It is the last 5 games they connected on fewer 3-point shots than the opposition. Spurs is the game that you should win. Their offense is struggling. They're not facilitating. They're, at least at this recording, on a 3-game losing skid. Rudy, please don't let this game be the breakout Nets game. He's guaranteed that's not going to happen tonight. All right. What do you think about this game, Nets Spurs?
Well, as you mentioned, everything, the Nets are struggling, can't get to 100 points the last couple of games, and yet this is probably a game that you're going to see them win over the Spurs, right? It tends to happen that way. No, but I'm saying you're right. I mean, they're coming off of a back-to-back. They played Milwaukee last night, so you've got them coming in off of that right there. Will the Spurs be ready to go? I'm sure they'll be ready to go. Mentioned again on the last Locked On Spurs about Chris Paul calling them out of the media. That's something that could light a fire under these guys, make them play a lot better. Their cohesiveness probably come together. You don't keep it in the locker room. You blast them on the media side. You blast them in public. I mean, why? Because that'll drive a little bit of fire underneath them. So I expect them to fully come out a whole lot better than what we've seen lately. And again, they haven't been playing bad. Let's be real. They haven't been playing bad. 2 close games with Philly and the Knicks lately. So they haven't been playing bad at all. They've been playing good basketball, just not getting it done in winning time. And that's what Chris Paul is saying. A good bounce back win would be against the Nets. But where there is, dark clouds, sometimes there's rain, Jeff. And I want to throw this stat out there. The Brooklyn Nets on the year are 6-3 against the Western Conference, with some wins coming against Sacramento, Golden State, and Phoenix. 3-game winning streak for the Brooklyn Nets in that whole Western Conference fiasco. They beat Sacramento, Golden State, and Phoenix all back-to-back. So they do have a winning record against Western Conference teams. I don't know if that means anything, but if it does, let's just say that if they were in the West, they would be 500 pretty much right now for what we're looking at. So I fully expect the Spurs to win this game, but again, it could be one of those Brooklyn Net nights where everything goes right.
Yeah. Well, they're below 500 at home. They're 5-9 at Barclays, and again, they struggle to put up points in today's NBA. This is low, 106 points per game at home for the Nets. So for the Spurs, it just simply playing the complete game. Wemby's probably going to be Wemby as always. So isn't that weird? Now we're just so accustomed. 40.9. Okay, sure. That's just typical. But you're going to see other guys step up their game. Devin needs to shake off a poor performance in New York. Keldon needs to shake that off, bring that energy off the bench. Maybe we'll see Castle back in the lineup. I don't know, but, you're going to be starting or coming off the bench. He'd be pretty good too. So overall, this is a game the Spurs should win on paper. But I want this to be a situation where fool me twice, shame on me, because think about Philadelphia, I felt they should beat them, and they did not. Let me look at some other stuff for the Spurs here, real quickly here. I want to see their record versus the East. I think they had a really lot East team. Very low East. Let's see. They versus the Eastern Conference. So you can find it here. Oh, they are 2-3. So interesting. But again, they play many. They have played many East teams this season. again, another what Spurs should win this month of December. They're averaging about 114 points per game, which is awesome. So just even if it's an offensive shootout, technically they should win. So bring the offense, play 48 minutes a game, have your secondary, third best player step up, Ellen Devin, Chris Paul. Again, Rudy, this should win. This should be a W. I think we just jinxed it, didn't we?
Probably so, man. I probably did.
Oh,
But,
man.
you know,
Sorry,
I,
everybody.
well, you know me, everybody says I can see the future and the fortune teller and all that. But after Brooklyn, Jeff, you're going on 19 games. There's a 19 game stretch there where you're only going to face one team. Actually, take it back. All 19 games are against teams at least minimum in the play-in. So that's not a good sign for the Spurs if you're having some kind of struggles now, because you've got 19 games after Brooklyn where at least these teams are in the minimum in the play-in spot. So they've all got a lot to play for. It's going to be a rough road for the Spurs here. If they can come out of this next 19 game stretch after Brooklyn unscathed, I would say they have a pretty good chance to maybe get to that win total mark that we were talking about yesterday. But again, you know, it's got to start with Brooklyn. You got to right the ship against Brooklyn. I think they'll beat Brooklyn. I think they'll be ready for Brooklyn. They'll come out a different team than what we've seen.
Yeah. The Spurs are on a 2-game road losing skid. So another streak they got to bust. That's like, it just coincides the last 2 games. So again, Spurs take care of business. That's all. Just take care of business. And I think the Spurs do have an way above 500 record versus teams with sub 500 records. So they, record wise, they do take care of business. So hopefully that will be another W for the Spurs and get back on the right track. Because as we've been saying, it gets rough for the Spurs very, very soon. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Rudy, we've been teasing you got something coming up in the new year. I know you're probably not going to spill the beans, but what can you tell the fans about Sweep and what you got cooking soon in the new year?
Yeah, so what I can tell you is if you don't want to miss anything, go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button. That way you can follow us. You'll be a subscriber. See everything that's coming out. Sweep Unplugged is going to get energized again. That was a huge side thing that we launched for Sweep the League. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to Refocus the network. That's our network that we're partners with, and we're growing it astronomically. So that network alone, it's just say that it's already global. I was going to tell you that it's already global. I'll give you that much. We've got a lot of connections throughout the world. STL Music is another reason why we're pretty much global. So again, the only way to not be left out is go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, be a subscriber, and be a part of the Refocus network as well. But if it works out, Jeff, you and I may be on TV at the end of 2025. We'll put it that way. I can spill that a little bit. We're working on a streaming type of thing, so I'll let that out the bag. But I can't guarantee it'll happen. We have a lot of hoops to jump through still, but you never know.
That's why you got to subscribe to Sweep the League right now. So you get caught up with all the things that are growing over there for Rudy and his crew. But Rudy, thank you for taking time out to join Locked On Spurs to close out the week here on Locked On Spurs. So we appreciate it. Again, everybody follow Rudy on X at Sweep the League. And we thank you all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. iTunes, Spotify, Campos Plus app, YouTube, and check out the Locked On Spurs newsletter. If you're on the YouTube side of things, it's in the description below. I made it very simple. It literally says LOS newsletter. Click on that, take you through there, sign up, completely free, and I think y'all will enjoy it. We'll be back on Monday to discuss more Silver and Black as their season continues. So for Rudy, the Jeopardy champion, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.